morning, everyone. Welcome. Happy Monday. So glad to see you all here. Go ahead. There will, most often, if not always, there will be an opening slide like this, and sorry for the delay this morning. Here it is. Open to page 18, put your electronics away, and say hello to your lab group. That will start on Wednesday. We will be sitting with your lab groups beginning on Wednesday, so you'll hear more about that in just a few moments. So get yourselves situated and bring yourself to presence. All right, and we'll open with our usual centering kind of activity just to bring ourselves into this room. So if it helps, you can close your eyes and sit with your feet on the floor and draw attention to your breath. Take a quick scan. First, a quick scan, your head, your heart, your body. And then start breathing, making yourself as comfortable as possible in this space. That breathing helps to do that. Fill your lungs and release it slowly. You can even sigh. That all helps to trigger that vagus nerve. And then see if you can let things go as you exhale. Take a quick scan of what's happening in your head, the racing thoughts, the things that happened over the weekend, the memories, the things you're processing. Take a breath and see if you can let all that go for right now. Take a scan of your body. Are there places that hurt? Are the places that are excited? There are places that feel more alive than others. Take a scan of your heart. What's happening there? It's where your real groove is, right there in your heart. So take 3 deep breaths and let that all of other stuff go. Bring yourself to this space. Realizing that this is the only moment that we have some control over. Can't control what's going to happen or what did happen, just right in the moment. Expansion. Thank you. So some more logistics as we get started. As I mentioned, that you're going to be sitting with your groups starting on Wednesday. So you should be watching the group me for a message from your TA. They're going to get the seating chart tomorrow night, and then they'll send that out to you so that you have it and have some idea of where to find your TA in this big room. Which means that if you have not already joined the group me for your lab, please do so. I know that there are some labs that only have a few students in them in the group me at this point. And that's a main form of communication between you and your TA. So if you're going to be absent for some reason, if you have a question about your journal, if you have anything that you need to update either a single person in your group or your TA or something for the whole group, then you'll send out messages to and from through the group me. So please make sure that you join that group. I want you to know that the syllabus of this course that's posted there on Canvas, that serves as a contract. That's my contract with all of you. It tells me what I'm going to provide as the person who's in charge of this course. And if something is going awry, if you can, like last week, for some reason, assignment 1 disappeared in Canvas. I have absolutely no reason why. Had to track it down, had to rewrite it. don't know where it went. So if something like that happens and you're not getting the information that you need from me, then please let me know right away so that I can fix it for you. Likewise, your TA is part of that contract. So if something is going on in your group that feels a little off to you, or heaven forbid your TA doesn't hand your journals back on time, or they don't show up to lab, or they're showing up late, then let me know that. That's part of our contract between you and me. And if I don't know what's going on, then I can't help, okay? So communication is absolutely key to making this system work. So please know that I take that contract very seriously. And I get excited about the fact that it's a two-way street. So it's our contract together for this course. I also want to offer that if what's going on in this room, in this class, is interesting to you, then I encourage you to share it. We have a stellar TA, Ryan, who's going to be putting these classes up on YouTube. And so you can share those with friends or family. And if you then start conversation, right? That's what it's about. It's like, she said something really weird today. You should go and look at this and then have a conversation about it. Bring somebody else in, a friend or a family member, in case that's something that's interesting to you. So this is the BiSci 3 YouTube channel. You can just search for BiSci 3 in this format and find it. And that's where our classes will be uploaded. Thanks to Ryan. So this is, we're all in this together. So going back to last Monday I proposed that you try this, a sidewalk experiment, a self-study. So I'm really curious. I'm really curious about what happened for you during this, what happened on the sidewalk, what did you discover? And I also, we talked about this, the power of this, the what informs and the why transforms. So did you play with these things? And if you didn't, why not? That can be informative too. So I'd like you to take a moment and talk to a neighbor near you about these two things and share any stories, something that came up, and then we'll put out the microphones and hear. I want to hear from some of you. Thank you. You are important, Gracie. Good morning. She says she feels important with the she feels important with the microphone. Oh. Good choice.
That's like always been my dream.
It's good. Well, sometime you can get Koosh to do this, and you can be the microphone lady. You have the power. Okay. I actually passed someone on the sidewalk this morning, and I said hello, and they lit all up and said hello back, and I thought, I wonder if they're in this room. Is there somebody in this room that we just passed this morning? No? Okay. It was such a sweet moment. It was very cool. Okay, so what happened for all of you? Any interesting discoveries or reflections, either about doing it or not doing it?
I didn't do it. I completely forgot to do it. But I did notice that when we meet with strangers, we either just kind of glance at them, but we try not to really make any sort of face, because then I guess I don't know, they might judge you in that sort of way. But I notice it's very different from the types of people, like in terms of relationships you have. If you see someone, like when you said good morning to someone and they lit up, if you see someone you already know, it seems to be like standardized. It's normal to treat someone that way. But I felt treating a stranger that way seems uncomfortable and awkward. And I wonder why we have gotten to that point where like we're afraid to go out of our way to like connect with new people, whether it's briefly, no matter how brief it is.
Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that. Does anybody have an answer or a reflection, a thought about his question? I wonder why it is uncomfortable or has become uncomfortable.
I also didn't do that because, I don't know, it would have been awkward.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've ever done that.
Okay.
And I failed in the mission that you gave us. So
I
I'm
don't
sorry.
think you failed. No, you don't need to apologize. I think it's important to realize that there's no failure. There's just an opportunity, right? So thinking about choosing to not do it is a choice, right? So if you were to, then ask yourself, now I chose not to do it because it was awkward. Now, why did I feel awkward? And what is it that brings me to this point of how I feel about myself or about others, or how I create interactions? There might be something cool that you might uncover. So no failure, just opportunity. Yeah.
I say my go-to, if I see someone, I nod at them, they nod me back, keep it pushing.
Yeah.
Sometimes if I'm in the mood, I'll say hi, and if it's a stranger, like, we start talking, like, how you doing, how's your day going, what's your name, this, that, and the third. But to answer the other question, some people they're not, like, comfortable to be uncomfortable, like, if you know what I'm saying. So they just like to stay in their comfort zone, don't want to branch out a little bit. But that's dependent on the person. Like, each person is different, but that's my analysis on it.
Yeah, thank you, Ish. May I ask you a follow-up question?
Say again?
May I ask you a follow-up question?
Yeah.
So do you have an idea of how you came to choose the way that you're, saying hi, or the nod that you do? Is there somebody in your life that does that? Is that, you say comfortable to be uncomfortable?
Well, growing up, my older brother, he does that all the time, so I simulate from him. And then my freshman year, I was in this one club called Blueprint, and one of my mentors, Boubine, had a quote that stuck in my head, like, learn how to be uncomfortable in different situations. So it stuck with me, and I'm still learning to this day. Like, I have improved since my freshman year, but yeah.
It's constant. It's something we can practice all the time, right? That learning is great. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. There's someone in the back row. Kush, if you would, please. In the meantime, you want to go ahead? Yeah.
I personally did not do it because I forgot to, but when I remember this one day, I was on a walk just like by my house, and I ended up like posting a video on my private story on Snapchat, and I was like, so I was on a walk and my friend was on a run, and it was on this like trail, so there were a ton of people present, but just like every once in a while, like every 2 minutes you'd pass someone. I was always like, do I wave? Do I not? Because sometimes you would wave, and then like they had their headphones in or something, so it was just like, it's kind of awkward. But then like you didn't know them, or like sometimes they just want to wave back. They want to acknowledge you, so it's always like, I don't know. I feel like it's just a weird, like, uncomfortable situation in a sense. just because you never really know what to do.
Right.
And then it's kind of like embarrassing if they don't say anything back.
It is, but has it hurt anything?
No.
Not really. So it's a playing. It's a good example. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. There are a couple of folks right over here too. Go ahead.
So I was trying to think about why I didn't do it, and I don't think it was because, I definitely just forgot to do it, but I was thinking about how I interact with people in general when I walk down the street, and I was thinking about how I often find myself trying to be more confident and putting on a certain face that almost makes me feel like I might be intimidating people because I want them to perceive me in a way that I am confident, and it actually comes off more as, don't talk to me, I might lash out at you. And while I don't necessarily mean that, I think I do that in the sense of because when I was younger, I didn't do that. And so I wanted to combat that. And so I feel like when I walk down the street, while I do feel very friendly and while I do want to speak to people and meet new people, I don't often show that on my face.
Oh, very cool reflection. I appreciate your sharing that. Very nice. Thank you.
So other than just like in general being a good person, just trying to like say hi and meet new people, I think the saying that your network is your net worth is a good thing to think about, and that you never know who you're going to meet, where you're going to meet them, or how they'll benefit you in your future. So like just over the past few days, like when we're in the elevator, not necessarily the sidewalk, I'll just try to spark up a conversation with people to meet them and get to know them.
Very cool. Thank you. There's someone right behind you too if you'll pass the microphone. Thank you.
For me, it's like, I feel like very much the opposite of what everyone's saying. Like, I didn't do it for like safety reasons. Like, I wouldn't just like approach a stranger and start a conversation because I don't know what the intentions are, like what they would do. And definitely if someone like randomly approached me, I would respond but not engage.
Yes. And I think that's an important realization and very good. Thank you. Safety. Boundaries. Give me
I
1
personally didn't do it, but I know that when I am on the sidewalk, either I'll find like a random object to like observe until I walk past the person, or I'll just use my phone because it's a safety net for me, even though I hate to admit it. So I don't know, I get scared when I meet new people, and I often tend to overthink conversations for the rest of the day.
I can relate to that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing though. I think that your reflection could be cool for you. Yeah.
So basically I realized that no matter who, like, depending on the person, if I'm friends with them or not, it really makes me change my attitude and body language. So if it's a friend, I will go up to them and just start talking. But if someone I don't want to see, I sort of try to make myself look busy. But if it's a person I don't know, I just smile. So it's a little like, I don't know you yet, but I'll get to know you, and I just feel like I still have that open body language, but just depending on the person, I'll be different no matter what.
That's interesting. We have a lot of capacity to show those emotions and making choices. All right, one more, and then we're going to... Yes, there you are. Sorry.
You're good. I think for some reason it's easier whenever you're with people walking down the sidewalk to say hi to people, because I feel like if it's just that one-on-one interaction, it's a little bit awkward. But it's also, I feel like, a little bit simpler if you're in a group setting and maybe not on the sidewalk, because that act of passing by is almost like a relief whenever you walk by the person. You're like, oh, I managed to dodge an interaction. So I feel like maybe that affects why people did or didn't do it, because it's like that sense of discomfort.
Yeah, and so how does that, can you use eye language and say that either again or say it from your own perspective?
Yeah, I guess I feel comfortable with other people whenever I am walking down the sidewalk because I'm not alone, and I maybe can rely on them if the interaction maybe doesn't go as planned, or they can help steer it in a way that it will be positive.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. All right, very cool. Thank you for reflecting and sharing your stories. Pardon me. So these choices that we make, Wednesday's class is all about choices. And so we're continuing to build these ideas one on the other, but knowing that our actions arise from our beliefs, and our beliefs are what shapes the world around us, our culture. So reflecting on these gives us capacity to make those choices. So I want you to check this out. Take in this image and just notice what thoughts come up. You can make a quick note in your journal if you want. What do you think? How do you feel? Again, this is like a no-pressure situation. There are 500 of us in the room, and there can be 500 different thoughts about this. So, does anybody have something to share that you think or that you feel about this image? Yes. I'll get you a microphone. Hold on. Right up in the top row there.
The image gave me a very maternal vibe, and I felt calm and safe looking at it.
Cool. Thank you. Others?
The first thing I thought about is how in this photo, it's not a photo, in this image, civilization and what I'm assuming are humans in those houses are kind of within nature rather than kind of overtaking it like it does in most of the world today.
Beautiful observation. Yeah, thank you. Here's one right up here, Kush, if you would please.
So by looking at it, I just like think about how we're all something, like part of something bigger. And yeah, it's just like we're like small compared to like everything that has like made us and like what we're part of. It's just, yeah, that.
Yeah, that. Right next to you.
Just straight looking at the picture reminds me of Moana.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, definitely. There's something, yes, there about that. Cool observations. Is there any others that need to be voiced? Yes. Right here, if you come up, Gracie, straight ahead. Thank you.
So one of the first things I noticed was like the difference between like in the background you can kind of see like an urban landscape and how like the mother sort of figures looking down on like the country.
And how does that make you feel?
I think it just emphasizes the importance of like living in nature, you know.
Thank you. Yeah.
The first thing I thought was like Mother Nature, because like the rock lady's kind of like looking down on everything. Make sure it's like peaceful.
So. Yeah, it does feel peaceful to you. Cool. So like the sidewalk experiment and the questioning experiment, there's not a right answer. So even though some of us might have picked out, I really love color, and so I love this image because it makes me feel warm inside, the colors of this image, that's what I noticed, and maybe somebody else in the room also noticed and felt something about color, but it could be a totally different thing than I felt. So the idea that we all bring our whole selves to every moment of every day, which includes those stories that we tell ourselves. And so what captures our attention might be unique or is unique to you. So even though maybe it's the same thing, maybe other people saw Moana too, it might take you back to that first time that you saw Moana, or it might take you back to some other memory related to that. So even though we are all, might be noticing the same things, they're different in some way. So as we sit with these things, just realizing that there is not right or wrong, But it also brings me to this point that we carry our own biases. Particularly, we're going to be talking today about dualism, the idea of thinking that something is better than something else. And this is important. So when we talk about this, the dualism is opposites, two sides of the story. It's the either-or thinking that affects the way we move through the world. So we're going to experience this in a couple of different ways. The first, we'll look at this image. Changing habits of perception is what we're working on. So what do you see in this image? Do you see two women talking, two young women talking, or do you see a young woman and an older woman? How many people saw two young women first? Okay. And how many people see a young woman and an old woman? All right. So for those, if you don't see it, so in this one, this is the young woman, these are her eyelashes, this is her ear, and she's turned and looking at that woman. This is her collar necklace. And then if you see a young woman and an old woman, this is the old woman's eye, this is her nose instead of her chin, and then this is her mouth. Oh, yeah. Okay, getting it? So the ways, so now I'm hoping you can see both, make it flip in your brain. So what we see affects our thoughts and our feelings. Our perceptions as we take in the world around us then leads us to feel certain things about the world around us. So let's do another one. Okay. So what do you see in this image? This is called a Fraser circle. Somebody want to yell out what you see in this image? Triangles, yep. There are the little triangles. What do the lines do? They what? They move. It is very cool. So what's happening is you have an illusion, at least you can see it this way, that it's spiraling toward the center, right? But in reality, it's a series of concentric circles. The line isn't connected. But the way that it's drawn, it makes it appear as though it's spiraling toward the center. So we're practicing this way of seeing with new eyes, whether it's seeing with new eyes the other people on the sidewalk or things like this. There are lots of things. It engenders a certain kind of humility in me when somebody points out a perspective that I never thought about. When I think I understand something clearly, and then I'm shown that there's a totally different way of seeing things. So you can do this with me. Everybody put your finger up in the air. Okay. And you start spiraling it clockwise. Okay, right up above your head, so the direction that the clock moves. All right, and then you start lowering your finger, keeping it spiraling. You're lowering your finger until the point when now you're looking down on it. Which way is it going? It's counterclockwise. What the heck? Right? Yeah, do it again if you need to. It's okay. You can do it the other way, right? So it's about changing our perspective, broadening our perspective. Some people need help. Okay, great. So what we're doing is we're trying to transcend dualism, this either-or thinking is a very Western culture kind of thing. It's a habit of mind that predisposes us to divide reality into categories, this or that. Things like trash or information. We're sometimes very quick to judge, well, that's not right. That's obviously the right way. It could be attractive versus unattractive, valuable versus worthless, beautiful versus ugly. Often we either believe in God or we don't. We're often Republican or Democrat. We're often male or female. We're often guilty or not guilty. We're putting things in boxes, very dramatic boxes. The downside to doing this is that our life becomes kind of simplistic. It becomes very dogmatic, maybe even fundamentalist. So what happens if we expand our way of thinking and combine those? Take in a little bit of pieces from the other side. This symbol, a familiar one, even here in Western culture, thinking about how things might appear as separate categories, but really have overlap. They're not as separate as we might imagine. The more we think we know, the less we actually know. So dualism gets in the way of seeing ourselves and the way that we look at our culture. And so why in the heck are we talking about this today? Is because as scientists, we need to be aware of our biases. We need to be aware of where we're putting things in boxes and what those boxes are. This is a very important thing for scientists to consider. We need to be aware of our thinking and how it affects the results of our experiments. Does that make sense? So whenever a scientist in a lab creates an experiment around a particular question, they need to really figure out the question and make sure that none of their own personal bias is tucked into that question. They need to be open to whatever answer is going to come from the experiment. So that's true for us as well. We need to think about how we get affected by these. So we're going to play again. We have these dyads, which seem opposite, up and down, rich and poor. So read these through, and then see there's a superior column and an inferior column. And what you're going to do there on your notes page for today is which is superior in your mind, up or down, rich or poor, and go ahead and take a moment to go through this list. All right. So wherever you are now, you can just pause for a moment. So how many of you put up as superior to down? Okay. Can somebody speak to why you felt as though that might be the case? Why is up superior to down? Okay. Well, okay, great. Thank you.
So I was raised in a Catholic household, so I was always taught, like heaven is up and hell is down. So I think that's where the idea of good is up and bad is down came from.
Yeah, I appreciate that reflection. Thank you. Yeah. And we use those kinds of phrases, the music is upbeat. Things are looking up. She brightens up the room. I'm up for it. Those are all very positive connotations, which can lead us to up being superior and good and desirable. But it's just a cultural overlay, so her reasoning is very justifiable, and she can believe that because that's how she grew up, and if she chooses to go with that belief, beautiful. She knows why. She's reflected on why she thinks up is better than down. In a lot of cases, though, these things need each other. If there wasn't a down, then there wouldn't be an up. There needs to be a balance. Uphill and downhill need each other for the descriptor of what the hill is like or what that landscape is like. So there is no up if there is no down. It's kind of a mind game. So it could be that it would seem, take the pairing rich and poor, it could seem that the superior thing would be the rich, but if you were to travel a bit and discover people around the world, it is often the poorer people of the world that have more richness in terms of common sense and generosity and openness and compassion, creativity, resourcefulness, awareness. So what happens if you play in your mind with flipping some of these? Which one is the hardest for you to flip? Might want to circle that one on your list. Which one is hardest to flip? Yeah, let me get you a microphone. Oh, wait, go ahead.
I think the hardest to flip is people and trees.
Okay.
I took a little bit on that one because I'm a person. I'm friends with a lot of people. Not really friends with too many trees, but I do like trees, and they're so just different. It's very hard to compare.
Yeah, okay, thank you for sharing. I appreciate your sharing. Oh, great. Kush, are you around? Yes, there are two right up here in the, two right up here in the front. Can you come up here first?
I think the hardest to flip would be educated versus uneducated because, it's better to be in the know, it's better to have your eyes open.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Go ahead.
I would say generous versus selfish because naturally I'm more of a selfless person. So I feel that, helping others is more important than keeping to yourself and doing what's best for you.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, right here.
Personally, I think that best and worst are the most difficult for me. I can't think of an example where I'd consider best inferior and worst superior. For the others, I think I can swap a lot of them, especially down and up. When you were saying someone's up for something, I think personally I hear if you ask someone, or if I ask someone a question, they most often say I'm down for it.
I'm down for that.
Yeah,
right.
and I don't really hear I'm up anymore.
Right.
It's definitely down.
It's interesting how the language has changed, and they get, very cool. Thank you.
For me, I would say that success and failure was the hardest because everyone's always I can't even think of the saying right now, but it's always if you fail, that's almost a better because you're learning from your failure. Obviously, I don't want to fail, I want to succeed, so that I was kind of going back and forth between what to say for that one.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your wrestling, and there's not a right or wrong. Go ahead, last one.
I say for me personally, it's best and worst because you need those times where, like, when life hits you hard and you need that time to reflect on yourself based on your past actions. Like, okay, what am I doing wrong? How can I improve on it and be a better version of myself? So in some situations, best could be superior, but in some situations, worst can be also be superior to help you grow as a person.
Thank you. So this is, one more. Okay.
I would say religion and science, simply because basically, like, I'm Christian, so to think that science is superior to religion, to me, wouldn't be like the best thing, you know?
Right. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. So the point of this is to reflect and to be open. You know, you might leave this and still be convinced that, you know, the superior one is superior for you and will always be. But the key is then to be open-minded, to understand that that is your personal bias. We're gonna work on some of these as we go through the semester, and really trying to I'm not trying to flip your opinion, but I'm trying to help you to see that there might be other ways of thinking. This could be a good, interesting conversation for your lab this week. So I'm going to share with you this story and see what you think. Psychologist Martha Beck tells a story from her youth about dualism and its effects on her. She says, when I was in college, every few weeks I'd join this group or that group of artists, and we'd all pitch in a few bucks to rent a studio and hire a model. Most of the people we got to pose were college students with bodies that matched the social ideal: slender, fit, perfectly proportioned. And then one day we got somebody really different. She looked well over 60 with a deeply lined face and a body that was probably 50 pounds heavier than her doctor would have wanted. Shining purple welts from a cesarean section and a knee surgery cut deep rifts in the rippled fat of her lower body. Another scar ran across one side of her chest where her left breast had once been. When she limped onto the platform to pose, I felt so much pity and unease that I physically flinched. But we were there to draw her, so I picked up my pencil. The thing about drawing is that you can't do it well with your social self. You have to bring out your essential self, which doesn't know anything about social stereotypes. So as I began to draw this maimed old woman, the most amazing thing happened. Within 5 minutes, she became a person of absolute wondrous beauty. She didn't look like a supermodel, and she didn't have to. Her body in and of itself was as beautiful as a piece of polished driftwood or wind-carved rock or a waterfall. My essential self didn't know that I was supposed to compare the woman to various movie stars any more than it would have evaluated the Andes Mountains by judging how they looked in an Iowa cornfield. My essential self simply saw her as she was, an exquisite sculptural form. When this perceptual shift happened, I was so surprised that I stopped drawing and simply stared. And the model seemed to notice this, and without turning her head, she stared into my eyes. And I saw the ghost of a smile flicker across her face, and I realized something. She knew that she was beautiful. She knew that I'd seen it, knowing that a room full of artists couldn't draw her without seeing her. I mean, really seeing her. She may have decided to give us a gentle education about our perceptions. For the young Beck, it was her separation of human bodies into attractive versus unattractive that initially blocked her from seeing that old woman at the start. Her culture had conditioned her to see the woman as old and maimed and pathetic, and this story trapped her. But when she started to draw, free of those cultural overlays, it was then that she could see the uniqueness of this particular individual. She was liberated from the shackles of that social structure, and she experienced herself and the woman on the platform as purely enough. So what about, oh, thanks. I think that's such a beautiful story. So what is the dualism of quarantine and COVID-19? COVID-19 started as a disease in wildlife, particularly in bats and in pangolins, and it made the jump to humans at an open-air market. It's one of those kinds of markets where people can walk up, the animals are alive in a cage, and then they're killed on the spot for the expectant customer. So some of these, they're called wet markets. They sell wild or banned species, and those crowded conditions allow viruses, diseases, bacteria to pass to all of those beings in that market. Sometimes the virus can change so much that it can start to infect and spread among people, and that's how we ended up where we are today. Because of our need or our desire for these exotic species for food, we are in this place. So there are dualism dyads that can be two words that combine. So one that comes up for me is getting back to normal versus the opportunity for new. So this is something that we really could consider in our dualism. So I'd like you to write this down on your sheet. Admitting ignorance and opening to discovery with unlearning. It can lead us to personal freedom and even more connection. So with that, I'm about to give you your first pack-back question for this week. The way it works is that you're going to write your reflection and you're going to respond to your conversation partner from your lab. You're going to write one reflection of your own and one response. If you want to respond to other people too, that's totally cool. You can do that. It's a way to create an online conversation around the question. So here's your question. You'll want to write this down as well. What is water? Admit ignorance and open to discovery. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a beautiful day.